It's rare that Sam Stein makes an important insight. When he does, we like to mention it publicly. He did just a moment ago. The e-commerce giant Amazon planning to donate $1 million to President-elect Trump's inaugural fund. That's according to new reporting in the Wall Street Journal. This comes as the company's founder, of course, billionaire Jeff Bezos, and other tech leaders work to shore up ties with the incoming Trump administration. The Journal notes that Bezos decided on the contribution earlier this week. He's also set to visit Trump next week in Mar-a-Lago. Meanwhile, Meta, the parent company of Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp, has also donated $1 million to the fund. The company's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, has had an up-and-down relationship with Trump, to say the least, but the two did have dinner last month at Trump's Palm Beach Club. Let's now bring in the co-anchor of CNBC's Squawk Box and New York Times columnist, Andrew Ross Sorkin. Andrew, thank you so much for being with us this morning. So talk to us about this phenomenon. Some would say, to use Susan's phrasing, quoting Timothy Snyder there, it's these tech giants obeying in advance. Others say, look, this is just smart politics, smart business. It would happen no matter who was in office. What's your read of it?
Jonathan, somebody is going to write a book that'll probably come out maybe a year from now, and the title is going to be, If You Can't Beat 'Em, Join 'Em. I think that's what this is about, in large part. This is about this idea that so much of what's happening here is a sort of if you can't beat 'em, join 'em situation. As we know, Mark Zuckerberg had pulled Trump off the Facebook platform, and I think that has really reversed himself, as has Jeff Bezos and as has Amazon, in terms of how they're thinking about trying to move forward. So I think what's happening right now is they're all of what I would put in the context of hopefully good faith efforts to try to create some kind of relationship with this president that they did not have, at least over the last several years. And here we are. I know there's going to be a sense that this is an obeying situation. I'm not sure it's that yet. I think there's a view that, you know what, we're going to try to make this work and see if it does. I think there is an optimism about it, but there's also a view that if it doesn't, then maybe we'll have to reverse course later. But spending $1 million like this is actually not that different than what used to happen historically, just with very different kinds of president-elects.
So, Andrew, there's a lot of thought here. The Trump team has promised that regulations are going to go by the wayside. There's some reporting this morning that they're going to scrap some car crash reporting requirements that's opposed by Elon Musk's Tesla. And then last night, the Wall Street Journal, big story, that their transition team is exploring ways to significantly reduce, merge, or even eliminate the top bank regulators, including some really important big names. Talk to us about what that could mean. Would that be something Wall Street would welcome, but does it endanger, perhaps, the foundation of the economy?
Well, look, so the report effectively suggests that institutions like the FDIC, which guarantees deposits in America, could ultimately get merged in, if you will, inside the Treasury Department. And that this sort of alphabet soup of regulators, which the truth is industry has long complained about because there's been this sort of competition by regulators to regulate, they would argue over-regulate, that if you could consolidate that, both maybe you would have a better system and maybe you'd spend less doing it. There is a value, arguably, to that competition among regulators because it forces the hands to some degree, but it also does create this uncertainty. I don't know. On the FDIC piece, which is probably the most important piece, it's really, are your deposits safe? If the FDIC were to disappear, it's not that the guarantee disappears, it's that the guarantee and that group effectively just moves inside of the Treasury Department and probably with less overhead. And the truth is that over the last several, frankly, financial crises that we've lived through, the FDIC has had to work almost hand in hand, frankly, with the Treasury Department and the Secretary of the Treasury. So I'm not sure it would create that big a distinction. But I do recognize that I think once you start to consolidate these things, you don't have as many different voices and the diversity of those voices around the table potentially competing with each other that may actually create hopefully better regulations when it's done well.
And lastly, Andrew, Susan mentioned how Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau, at least to this point, has not really fought back against Trump's taunting, whether about tariffs or the suggestion that he would annex Canada and be our 51st state, even calling him Governor Trudeau in a social media post. But all eyes turn to the province of Ontario and its Premier Doug Ford, which is floating the idea they're going to hit back, that they may bar American-made alcohol and some other restrictions if Trump follows through on these tariff threats.
Ontario is not having it, and they're throwing down the gauntlet, both on the alcohol front, because it would make the export of alcohol from the U.S. very complicated and much more expensive. But potentially, more importantly, there's this electricity piece, which is Ontario delivers electricity to about 1.5 million homes in the United States, and they're suggesting maybe they'd even consider cutting that off. So, you know, this is when people talk about the tariffs and the uncertainty the tariffs could create. It wasn't just the cost of those tariffs, it's also the retaliation, and this is an example of the kind of thing that could happen, and therefore the kind of different leverage points that you think either the U.S. has, or in this case, Canada may have. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of this. The question is this just all a lot of talk and bluster, or is this real? I think everybody's waiting to see how real it very much is for President-elect Trump, and on the other side, how real it is in some of these both countries and now provinces, and what kind of political support there would be for those things, because, by the way, there would be a cost for them, too.
Ontario, welcome to the Resistance. CNBC's Andrew Ross Sorkin. Thank you, Andrew. Have a good weekend. We'll talk to you next week.